Right, member of the team MVP, Strong Terran, a Code S player. Will he drop down to Code A? He is.
MVP Keen.
He's definitely keen on staying in Code S.
Oh, absolutely. I would be too, man. I wish I were in Code S. oh, go MVP. Hello from GWU.
George Washington University, I'm assuming that means?
I wouldn't know. It might actually be a Korean university.
Oh.
Who knows, man? Over here, at the top left, a member of the team OGS named himself after
OGS Inca.
the Incas, the ancient civilization. I believe the Incas were in Peru, what is now known as Peru.
Just like the Protoss. And that guy is probably Korean.
Most likely. Couldn't quite read all of that in time. I'm like, I can read Korean, but I read like a kindergartner. I have to like sound it out.
I need the children's books. See a spot, run.
We should actually get some of those books and improve our Korean.
Get some nice throw pillows for the GOM house, the children's books as well. Nice little Zelnaga tower comes out of the beach in Belshire Beach. Do you think Belshire's a guy or a person, or where does that name come from?
Belshire, I think, is a Protoss faction, I believe. Okay. I'm not 100% sure on that.
So this is where those guys go for a vacation?
Someone should tweet at me about that, because I'm sure one of you guys knows. I'd really like to know. Like Antigua Shipyard. Antigua is, I think, is a Terran world, and so the map Antigua Shipyard, and I was like, I think that's what that is, but I'm not absolutely sure. Someone's asked me about that.
So we have two assimilators coming up here for Inca. No sort of crazy 4-gate all-in coming out for him.
The SCV does see all of this.
Yep. We also don't have a Zealot being produced at all. So he's going to try to save up his minerals for later.
Keen is going for a 1 barracks expand, which is pretty easy to do on this map against a Protoss. Because if the Protoss wants to be aggressive, there are 2 entrances, sure, but the area is, it's a little bit easier for Terrans to defend than it looks. With a good bunker placement. Plus, if you want to, you can just hold at the front. A lot of times you go for 1 barracks expand, your opponent gets aggressive, you don't even have the command center down, you still lose. There's that high ground area that you guys just got a shot of. Both bases have that, where you can put a bunker up there, you can put your units on the high ground and hold off 4 gates pretty easily.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how you have that high ground advantage over your choke point, but your choke is also a flat ground, so you can't put any sort of bunker on there.
Yeah,
a huge advantage, but
so
you
have
can
to
keep
fall
your
back.
Safe.
Exactly, you have to fall back if you want to hold it if the attack comes. And we do see Keen actually putting a bunker on the low ground here.
So I was wrong.
First tech lab goes down. Meanwhile, back at Inca's base, he's doing the 2-gas, 1-gate expand.
So it's interesting to see that the Stalker caught that scouting SCV. They both were just checking the 4th base of Inca. Maybe there is a place for good proxies and stuff to go down.
Well,
really.
I mean, speaking of proxies, it's a proxy nexus. No, it's a hit. It's a hidden base.
It's a Manor Nexus.
It's like a funny concept of proxy nexus. You like make a mothership out of it, so the mothership doesn't have to fly across the map.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
I've done that before, man.
Kind of like planetary fortress rushing.
Mothership actually used to be able to like teleport back anywhere it wanted to. In the beta, so you could just do all sorts of awesome things on the mothership. You guys should look up Artosis losing to a mothership, man. In the beta on Steps of War, that was a good game. Look that up. I don't remember who he was playing against, but it's on YouTube. Artosis is gonna like yell at me after this when he finds out. I told
that's
you
fine.
guys
That's why I switched to Protoss. So.
Yeah, that's exactly why he switched. You guys just don't know.
So we have a few Marauders coming out here. There's 4 Marines in the bunker. Another one sitting outside. He's left out of the party, but it doesn't matter because he's got his Marauder friends.
Well, it's funny, Inca hit the Nexus, but Keen actually hasn't been able to even check for the Nexus. He just kind of expects that it's there.
Yeah. And he's also got an expansion of his own, so it's not any sort of aggressive play like we saw in the first game.
And these probes are just going to hope that no one is looking because they're transferring over to that Nexus right now, completely unguarded. What I'd like to see Inca do from here is make another Nexus, so he's done kind of like a double expand, similar to how Slog did in the team league the other day.
He doesn't want to do it until he scouts that the expansion for Keen's up. Like, he still doesn't know that Keen went for a command center, so if he goes for a 3rd Nexus right now, which would look like a normal 2nd Nexus timing, it would be very, very dangerous if there was no expansion coming out from Keen.
And Keen's actually come over here. He's going to see no Nexus. That's going to weird him out a little bit.
Yep.
And because he sees that, he actually leaves his units at home, which is exactly what Inca's going to want.
He leaves his units at home. He builds a second bunker. He also doesn't salvage the first one because he knows, hey, he might need to fall back to that position. He's also temporarily supply blocked.
Yeah, this is actually they both are. That's a little weird. Like got the craziest situation ever here in the GSL. Why can't we just be friends?
Away SCB.
SCB is really shy. He's like, well, you know, if you poke me, I don't actually regenerate like you do. But they're actually battling now.
No, they're not. Probe is being friendly and getting rid of his shields. Oh, the probe actually dies, but a stalker comes in.
That probe was. He's like the kind of personality that just gets pushed around by everyone, you know? It just lets everyone just bully him. I don't know if he's depressed.
He just sat there while he was taking beating from the SCV.
Inca actually has a lot of minerals banked up. I think he's going to make a Nexus soon, but he's just not doing it.
Well, he did warp in those 3 Zealots at his expansion. He was worried that if those bio units did come in, he would need to have some sort of strong defense. Having this army move over kind of keys Keen in onto the fact that there might be something else fishy going on, but he is going to actually back off with his main army.
Well, Inca's added up to 6 gates now. And he may want to do a similar attack to what we saw last game, a 6-gate timing attack, but it's so late, and I just don't think that's going to be the case. He is adding a Twilight Council as well. He's absolutely not going to do it. But he needs to make that Nexus. He's just so nervous about what's going on because he doesn't have the towers. I think he's going to take the towers, go to the front of Keen's base, see that Keen's army is at home, and then make the Nexus. Which makes sense. It's a smart move. And, some of Keen's units are moving out here. They could get trapped.
They could get trapped, but there is a lot of speed out here for the Stalkers, and there's a lot of them together. The thing is that this factory is actually going to float over and scout the expansion going on. It's trying to drop, but you can't drop on top of a Nexus. I'm sorry.
And Keen actually is going to send those units I was talking about over here. Now, because Inca didn't notice them, Keen is not going to lose these units like I originally thought, but instead these units are actually just going to do a lot of damage.
Yeah, they're going to take out a lot of the probes really quickly, and then they're just going to focus on the Nexus. If they can get this down before the units are warped in, it's going to be a huge advantage for Keen, but the thing is the Zealots warp in very quickly. He's got to just run away behind the mineral line, and then that gave Inca the time to get these Stalkers in and clean up this drop, but not before it did some decent economic damage.
Well, there is a drop coming towards the main base of Inca. He doesn't see it.
He doesn't see it. He also spent a lot of his warp gates on defending his
Exactly, so he's not going to be able to warp in here. He does have 6 that their cooldown's just finished. He's going to want to warp in Zealots now. His army out of
the pylon for these gateways is going down. 2 of them can't warp in. The other pylon, which is powering the Twilight Council, goes down as well, so the upgrade for the Zealot charge is not going to be finished anytime soon. He needs to get another pylon up there to power that.
And meanwhile, Inca has to defend his natural, I guess you could say his second base from another attack from Alive. Alive splitting the attention of Inca really well here.
Yeah, having that hidden base is really good for Inca at first, but once it gets scattered, it's really hard for him to defend both at the same time. And even a small drop here can do a ton of damage.
Oh no, part of Inca's units getting caught in the middle of the map as well. This is looking really bad for Inca's good force fields blocking these units away. Keen taking a huge supply lead, though, killing units here and there. He actually killed about 15 supply worth of units with that one dropship, just because when you're warping in units one at a time, they get killed so quickly.
Yeah, this hidden base is actually starting to hurt Inca quite a bit.
Yeah, he's pulling the probes in there, knowing he can't hold it. But his Nexus at the natural is nowhere near being done.
So we have a 3rd Nexus coming out for Inca to replace the one that just got destroyed. However, we have a 3rd command center coming out for Keen, which is going to give him a huge lead.
Yeah, if Inca wins this game, I will take off my casting blazer and throw it into the sky.
Don't let it get wet.
Inca has he's taken this build that was a smart idea and has just been too nervous to act. He's just been getting really unlucky. He was really nervous about making another Nexus. We didn't know exactly what Keen was doing. Yep. Then he held the wrong Xel'Naga Watchtower several times while Keen was just trying to get aggressive on the map. He missed several different attacks.
Yeah, it was good for him to have that hidden base, but it's not something that you can defend later on. You have to keep your army split while the Terran can choose exactly where he fights at any given time. There wasn't even a token force to defend his main base against that drop. That's what really changed the game right there.
Now, Alive is going to take the gold base. His command center is done. He's got a huge army. an army that Inca couldn't even think about taking on. If Inca had like twice the units he had now, he still wouldn't be able to take that army on. It's just that much bigger. He's up 53 supply.
He is up 53 supply. He's also getting a Ghost Academy out here. He's getting the upgrades for his bio units. There is Storm and the plus attack and damage, or attack and armor for the Protoss units, but
we've got personal medevacs again, just like we had yesterday.
Yep.
Each unit has its own medevac.
Not
so
quite yet, but we're going to get there very soon.
Luckily, luckily Inca has an observer following Keen's army. He sees everything that Keen is doing. He's going to storm here. This is going to be nice. Oh!
Could have been nice.
Could have been nice.
It was just okay there.
It was actually kind of mean.
It tickled a little.
Well, it was a nice try. He saw the army and he decided to try to abuse that, but Keen was too on top of things. Yeah. A Zealot trying to be annoying, like the Bonbon Zealot of last game.
We also have a Planetary Fortress coming up here and a bunch of turrets. A really nice supply depots. There's a turret right next to the command center just to make sure you can scout and get any sort of anti-air against those observers.
Yep. And the observer actually was killed by that very same turret. Actually, it was killed by something. It was the vision of the turret was able to kill the observer. So it's no longer following the army. So Inca doesn't know where the army is anymore.
Still SUVs holding on to gold minerals. Doing a good job. They get their gold chain.
So the army is actually a beautiful scan by Keen. He sees the army of Inca. He's going to put his ghosts in a place where they can EMP. And look at this. Sorry, third base. You cannot be made today. Huge
Ghosts are not doing
here.
anything. They just got an EMP in the background, but that's going to force the Archons to be made. All these bio units are very, very hurt, and the Zealots have actually closed in quite quickly. But the thing is, that's a lot of bio units. That's a lot of medevacs keeping them alive, and this is going to force the units of Inca to run away. That's also going to put the supplies at 90 for Inca compared to 180 for Keen. We have a double supply lead for Keen right now. In addition to multiple bases, this is going to be GG very shortly. However, those are some really nice storms to try to keep them in the game as long as it can.
Yeah, those medevacs are just constantly keeping this very weakened force TSL alive. And GG. Well, that game, Keen got lucky on several different accounts, but the fact of the matter is Inca just wasn't able to scout well enough. And he couldn't react to what was going on because he had the wrong tower, and Keen's units were always where he didn't expect them to be. And if he had scouted just a little bit better, it could have gone differently. Yeah,
he was being very overcautious compared to his first game. The first game he expanded and got punished for it. Second game, he still wanted to expand early to get that economic lead because then it gives him an advantage later on.
And if he had the towers when that first attack came up for Keen, he would have been able to like kill that entire half of Keen's army where he was already ahead in supply. Would have killed that army, kept the Nexus alive, would have been able to take his own Nexus, then would have been able to go home and defend the drop. It's just like one thing led to another thing, which led to another thing, and
he just fell apart. If he had one Stalker in his base, watching that cliff, he could have prevented that drop completely. Yeah. But he had no units in his base whatsoever. He just used his warp in on
he did.
Far expansion.
And I checked, actually, after you said that I checked, I took my observer computer and I control-clicked on the gateways, and he actually had 6 warp-ins available. You know, the little 6 next to him. And he didn't use them immediately because he was worried about the other harassment that could have happened at the other base. And, you know, like, then the pylons got empowered, so he was warping in 3 units at a time because he lost 3 power of the gateways. And then if you have 2 Mirars and, like, 6 Marines, or, 2 Mirars and 4 Marines and a medevac shooting at your pylons, and you're, like, warping in 2 Zealots and a Stalker, they just die. Then, like, your cooldown finishes, you do it again, and they just die. And then you're like, well, if I don't do that, you're just gonna kill my Nexus. So, like,
yeah, that hidden expansion would have been great by Inca if he'd then expanded again and he'd also defended his bases. Even if he lost that expansion, if he got his probes away when that attack happened, it still would have been cost-effective for it. So we're actually going to see our next players, and then we're going to go for a break very soon here. Our player for the next game is actually going to be Alive versus Lenok. Both these players doing quite well so far. Alive is 2-0, and Lenok is 1-0. So if Alive wins this, he is going to be Code S. Or, well, most likely.
Yeah, it's almost certain that he will be Code S.
It would have to be a 3-way tie for him to not necessarily be Code S.
Well, actually, if Keen has only played, he's gotten 2 wins, so we can't determine it because if 2 players go 3-0, and then you have the tiebreaker situation where it's like you don't find out until those 2 players battle each other as to who gets Code S. So it's not guaranteed, but it's
how groups work.
It's pretty much guaranteed. Yeah. I mean, if he wins this.
So, Lenok... Wait, is this a... Oh, this is actually
This is just the second game for Lenok.
Yeah.
So, Lenok's up 1-0. Pretty important match for him, but he looks pretty comfortable. He's actually just yawning there.
These guys have actually faced each other 4 times. That's what's being shown on your screen right now. Leenock won the first 2, or sorry, he won the Super Tournament where it was a 1v1 tournament, and then he lost in the GSTL to Alive twice in both March and May. So Leenock is showing that he's maybe a little bit better in a situation that he can pair, but Alive also shows that he's very strong. And we're actually going to go to a 2-minute break before we see who's going to win this next match and take it to 3-2 in their overall match series.
See you guys in 2.